instead of saying, I want to work hard for the sake of working hard, and so I'm just going to keep doing these things over and over again and not get a lot accomplished, to say it's my goal to always be working hard on new challenges. I want to get good at this task, this thing that I'm struggling with right now. Or, even better, I want to get good at delegating this. I want to get good at showing somebody else how to do this thing so I don't even have to do it. So I can go struggle on something else.
Welcome to Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am your host, Geoff Welch, and I help small business owners overcome overwhelm and replace overthinking with intentional action.
What is up? Welcome to episode 33 of Your Business is Not Your Boss. I am your host and business coach, Geoff Welch, and today we are talking about maybe being a little bit addicted to the struggle. I'm sure none of you can relate to that. Before we jump in, if you have some tendencies to embrace the struggle, you probably feel overwhelmed at times. Sometimes you celebrate that, but if you ever want off of that, if you ever want to feel like, man, I want to be able to move forward on things that are important to me, on my priorities, to not be stuck in this cycle of just dealing with whatever's in front of me because it is the latest and the loudest, and that's how I operate. You should grab my anti-overwhelm playbook. It is at geoffwelch.com/playbook. This is going to give you a great head start. It's going to allow you to start changing that relationship with overwhelm, changing that relationship with feeling stuck where you're at today. Okay? geoffwelch.com/playbook. Okay. So let's jump in, and jumping in is talking about some of my recent adventures here. So I promise this has a point. But my wife Nicole and I got this little couples camper at the end of last year. It's like a probably 20-foot overall, but it's like 17-foot interior camper. Two people. Our 17-year-old daughter could probably squeeze in there on this second bed if we made it out, but it's cozy. It is cozy. Not a lot of extra room, but that's what we wanted. We're certainly not seasoned RVers, campers. I like to take the indoors with me. I'm not trying to be wet and cold all the time. Some people love that. Some people wear that as a badge of honor. It's not for me. If that's for you, great. Enjoy it. I celebrate that. We were right next to a campsite recently with someone in a tent. And, they spent a lot of time sitting around the fire in their raincoats in the rain. And wonderful. Good for you. Absolutely. I preferred to be inside taking afternoon naps in a dry, warm camper. Everybody wants something different, right? So we got this small camper because it was easy to move around, and what we wanted was to just be able to get out for the weekend, to be able to do an overnight or maybe a couple, 3 nights. We're not taking long extended trips necessarily. So we get this camper at the very end of last year, September 30, I think we drove it home. Literally the week after we got it home. And this was like a day trip. We just went down to Anchorage, which is about 6 hours from Fairbanks. Took a day trip and picked it up, came back, and it snowed the week after we got it home. So it was like we got it just in time, not being well-versed at all in trailering, pulling something like that, especially over many, many miles. I didn't want to have to do that in the snow. I'm glad that we got that taken care of. But we had it all winter. And so I spent the winter doing lots of research and figuring out what tweaks we needed to do to it, and what we needed to be prepared for when it came to, hitching it up for trips and setting up the campsite and all that good stuff. So I did a ton of research. But no matter how you slice it, the first time you go out, it's clumsy, right? You're doing most of these things, if not all of these things, for the first time. And I happen to think that, like pulling a trailer is a responsibility, right? Like I could put myself, my family, other people on the road in danger if I don't take this seriously and do it well, even with a small camper, right? Like this is not just fun, silly time, right? We're trying to do something well so that we are all safe and the people around us are safe. The last thing I want is, the camper jumping off the hitch as we're barreling down the road and it's going one way, we're going another, and, all that good stuff. So we go out on our first trip at the beginning of May, and it went very well, but it was a little clumsy, right? It took a little bit of time to do all the things. And as subsequent trips have been taken, I've gotten better. I've learned a lot about how it all works. I've learned a lot about how to sequence things in the right order, how to just use the tools more effectively, because I have some practice now, right? Like most of us can relate to the idea that the first time you do something, especially if it's something you're going to have to do many times in the future, the first time you do it, you're like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. This is going to take me forever to do this. Because the first time is painfully slow. But as you do it more and more and more, you get faster. And I told my wife on the way home from a recent trip, I said, it feels like, it doesn't feel like it's as difficult as it should be anymore, right? Like part of what made me feel comfortable that I was doing all of the things the right way was the fact that it took a long time and it was difficult. Does that make sense? The fact that it was challenging was an indicator that I had done it correctly because I was having to jump through lots of hoops and pay attention to stuff. And of course, the first time you do anything, it's like, you're reading the instruction manual over and over and over again, right? So, and as we have gotten better, both at doing the mechanical parts of it and also just working together, who does what when, and oftentimes when I'm backing the camper in, she's got the walkie-talkie and she's the spotter and is telling me where to go and what I need to pay attention to, and like all of those things are getting a little easier, right? Not necessarily simple, but they're easier. They take less time, and now, I should also just throw in here, this should shock no one, I have very detailed checklists, so I can't actually miss anything. If we're going through the checklist and when we get in the truck before we pull away, we rattle off those things and, yes, no, we're going through to make sure we've handled all the parts. So I can't actually forget something, but it is this weird sensation of like, okay, that's done and it wasn't that difficult. What didn't we do, right? Like there must be something we're missing. And I don't know about you. I got a pretty good idea, but I don't know about you specifically. But I think a lot of small business owners fall into this trap of measuring the value of our work, measuring the value of ourselves, measuring how much we did, like how good we did in a given week, day, week, month, whatever, on how much of a struggle there was. If we feel like we had to move mountains, there's this sort of extra sense of accomplishment, right? As opposed to, now, I mean, this is a crazy, crazy thought, having things so dialed in that we never had to move mountains. Mountains got moved, like things happened, but they were actually kind of easy. That doesn't feel the same way to a lot of small business owners that I talk to because we're used to the struggle, we understand the struggle, and so we measure things based not on output, not on what got done. We measure things very often based on how challenging was the experience, how much effort did I have to invest. The greater effort invested, the greater sense of accomplishment. Not necessarily the greater accomplishment. We may not have gotten a lot done, but we feel good about it because we worked really hard. And I think working hard is great. I think it's very admirable. And my goal is never to tell you not to work hard. But what I would offer is if your focus is on the struggle, it can be easy to stay stuck in an arena or stuck on things, not get any better at those things because getting better will make them easy and then it's not a struggle, so then it's not worth as much. Does that make sense? So I think there's this paradoxical misery that many of us experience where we recognize that we don't want necessarily to experience the struggle. We don't really like the feeling of the struggle while we're going through it. We like that feeling later on is like, oh man, I endured, I pushed through, I made it happen. And so this paradoxical misery is that the easier things get, the more we get done, which is a good thing, but the less good we feel about some of it because we've based our sense of accomplishment not on output, but on effort invested. If there's not as much effort, it doesn't feel as good. So here's the thing I want to offer is maybe the goal, instead of saying, I want to work hard for the sake of working hard, and so I'm just going to keep doing these things over and over again and not get a lot accomplished, to say it's my goal to always be working hard on new challenges. I want to get good at this task, this thing that I'm struggling with right now, or even better, I want to get good at delegating this. I want to get good at showing somebody else how to do this thing so I don't even have to do it. So I can go struggle on something else, right? When I first got an assistant, the biggest initial struggle for me was that she took a lot of things off my plate that soaked up a lot of time for me. I joke a lot that Calendar is my favorite app on my phone, and she took that from me. It's like somebody taking your favorite game and being like, you can never play that again. Sorry. She took my calendar out of my hands, and so I didn't have to deal with that. She took a lot of like travel planning and stuff like that. She took that off my plate. There were a number of these kind of things that that just built up in my days and my weeks. Things that were just like low level, not low level of importance, but low level, sort of like nagging kind of things. I got to spend 5 minutes here. I got to spend 10 minutes there. None of them ever felt like a big deal until she took them from me. And I was like, what do I do with myself now that I have all this extra time? And there is that sense of like, well, all of those things, having to do all of those things in addition to the regular work I had, sort of gave me the sense of I'm working hard every day. It turns out I was working hard on some things I shouldn't be doing that someone else should be doing, so that I could have the free space to think and to consider what else I could be doing. And so her taking those things from me was not an opportunity for me to just say, I get to let my foot off the gas pedal and I get to coast now. It was to say, it gave me the opportunity to say, I now get to look for new challenges. I get to look for new things that I hadn't been even able to consider in the past because I was so encumbered by these other things. For you, it may not be your calendar. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. What matters is, I think the value that you can give to yourself is to always be struggling on something new. If you need that, if you're not ready to let go of it hurts, so it's good, right? Like, I am in pain, therefore I am contributing. If you're not willing to let go of that, or you're not able to let go of that yet, maybe there's a way to redirect that in the short term. Maybe there's a way to focus that in a different way. So instead of saying, I struggle in the same way on the same things all the time, and it feels gross when I get good at something because now the struggle is less. You say, my goal is to get as good as I can, as quickly as I can at all these things, or to give as many of them away as possible. To say, I delegate so that my team can feel empowered, so that I have less on my plate, so that I can choose a new struggle, so that I can invest in a new opportunity, in a new place, a new challenge, right? So the goal is not for a task to be perpetually challenging, right? The goal is not to say, I'm going to go find things that are difficult and never get better at them because, man, I love the difficult part. The goal is to, if you need that struggle, and I think that there is merit in not needing it and getting to the point where you can say, actually, you know what? All of these things are getting done. I'm not having to do most of them. And it feels great. It feels great to have a little freedom. It feels great to have the opportunity to enjoy something without constantly looking over my shoulder at what I've missed, at what isn't working, at what's broke. Like, I just get to enjoy things as a small business owner. That's a pretty amazing thing, right? But if you're not there yet, I that's a process. I don't know that you just one day say, yeah, I'm done struggling. It was a good time while it lasted, but now I'm done with that. Some of you are going to have to take some baby steps, right? And certainly I am in that camp of someone who has recognized the opportunity to struggle less and have said, "Ooh, I don't quite know what to do with myself here," right? So instead of avoiding improvement, instead of avoiding the part where you become more efficient and more effective, choose to struggle on new things. Choose to be leveling up, to make it your mission to master these things, the current struggles, so that you can find new struggles to master. Having said all of that, I would encourage you, again, to grab my anti-overwhelm playbook, right? I know that this probably sounds a little bit confusing. The idea that you would be sort of addicted to the struggle and then also be wanting to be less overwhelmed. I think what we want is to struggle in the way that is comfortable to us, right? There are certain struggles that I embrace. There are certain things that I'm like, it felt good to work hard at that. And there are other things where I'm like, I hate every minute of this. This is the worst, right? So you can embrace the struggle and be addicted to certain kinds of struggle, but not necessarily enjoy feeling overwhelmed all the time, right? So if you would like to turn down the volume on that sense of overwhelm, if you would like to feel less stuck, feel like you have the ability to think about what's next, to think about the future, to think about your priorities, not just what comes at you, your priorities. What do you want? How can your business work for you, not how can you work for your business? I would encourage you to grab my anti-overwhelm playbook. JeffWelch.com/playbook is where you can find it. It is free. You can grab it today, and you can read it in 5 minutes. It's super, super quick read, but that 5 minutes is going to pay dividends over days and weeks and months and years because it has tools in there that will help you to, again, turn that volume down and understand how to do it again when it inevitably rears its ugly head, okay? When overwhelm pops back up at some point, you're like, I actually know how to address this. I feel like I've got some tools to help me modulate this a little bit, okay? So the struggle is real. For some of you, the struggle is your favorite thing. That's fine. Just concentrate on finding new struggles, new challenging opportunities, new things to embrace and to lean into instead of finding yourself mired in the same spot. I would encourage you to consider how measuring output and actual accomplishment may be a better way than just measuring your effort. But I understand, we're all working on it. Okay? So until next time, do not forget, your business is not your boss.